Welcome back to Clydesdale Media, where we bring you the best from the world of CrossFit. Podcasts, news, special interest, health, fitness. If you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button, hit the notifier so you're the first to know when we have new episodes. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Good Tuesday evening, everyone. Welcome to the Clydesdale Media Podcast. My name is Scott Switzer. I'm the Clydesdale. We have with us the one, the only Paige Semenza. How are you, Paige?
Hello. I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. We have Kat running the board, so she'll be in the chat with everybody tonight. So say hi to her when you drop in, but she'll be producing. So first things first, what's it like being a homeowner?
Oh. I'm not the homeowner. Ben is the homeowner. We aren't married yet. So, yeah, it's not that fun when problems happen. So, but luckily, like my mom worked for the city of Wilkes-Barre, which is a town here, doing health inspections. So during her time in her career, she made a lot of connections with um, people that can fix houses and take care of pests and all that stuff. So we had a pest issue and just ants, but yeah, she fortunately was able to get us help with that, and it was pretty easily resolved. So it
Yeah,
could be
I
stressful.
have owned my house for 19 months now. We have a new roof. We have a full
It's fun.
black mold system in our house now. We have termite control.
Yep.
Yeah, just to name a few things. 19 months,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
It's not, yeah. When things are going wrong, I mean, houses are a lot of work, but we really enjoy our little humble abode. So we take good care of it.
So speaking of Ben, last time we were on, you guys had just been together for about 20 months, and it's been almost a year,
Yeah,
probably 8, 9 months since we've been on. And so how's that all going?
things are good. Things are really good. He's actually still at work right now. So I remember we talked about having him on the podcast next time. But things are going well. So, he's busy with work and, uh, you know, trying to balance that with the social life and getting to the gym. And, but things are good. And I'm taking care of things at the gym. We take care of things at home. So we have a pretty good balance.
So Jody asks Wilkes-Barre, PA, and
Hmm.
I know that to be factual. Yes.
Yep. So I am
The
living right now in Oliphant. Wilkes-Barre, Scranton are like the two big cities that, people know Scranton for the office. But so we kind of live in one of those small towns within the Wilkes-Barre Scranton area.
Yeah, gosh, when I was a kid swimming, what probably before you were even born, I was swimming at the Keystone State Games. They held them in
Yeah.
Wilkes-Barre one year,
Yep.
and
That's great.
usually it was at Penn State, but for some reason that one year it was in Wilkes-Barre, and I was over there. My God, it was such a long travel from Western PA, just
Oh
north of
yeah.
Pittsburgh, all the way up.
Mhm. I know. And when I went to college in Ohio, it was just straight across Pennsylvania. It's the most boring drive. But yeah, I used to do the Keystone State Games with ice hockey. Gosh,
Yeah.
feels like forever ago.
Yeah, it actually, Franco Harris just passed away in the last few months. He was such a big proponent of the Keystone State Games, at
Yeah,
least when I was doing it.
that's
I was
awesome.
really sad when he passed away because I got to meet him at the Keystone State Games, um, and he just loved kids and doing things for kids, and
Yeah,
it was awesome.
that is
So
awesome.
how did it work for ice hockey? Because I know in swimming they divided the state into four, and so I was northwestern Pennsylvania, and we put a team together and we would compete against Southwest, Southeast, and Northeast.
Honestly, I can't even like hockey wasn't a huge sport, especially for women. So I honestly can't even remember how that was broken up. I mean, I'm impressed you remember that. Like I can't remember. Um,
Yeah.
it was I don't know. I don't remember exactly how it was broken up. That just it was a small sport, so it's kinda hard to I don't remember. I have no idea.
Yeah. Probably the reason I remember is US swimming and whoever was running the Keystone State Games for swimming at that time were in a fight, and you could only do one or the other.
That sucks, yeah. Well, swimming is
And
so I mean, swimming here is really big. At least from, like, a friend of ours runs a club team, and, man, it seems like she is busy every single week and weekend with the swimming team. Seems awesome, but
I said last time you were on the show that I'm a self-professed mama's boy. I don't know. I really don't know how my parents did it with my swimming career. Like,
the travel
as much as I had them traveling,
yeah.
and my dad was unemployed when I was like, it was the 80s, steel mills were shutting down, and I don't know how they did it. Honest to God, I don't know.
Sounds like good parents. Make it work.
Yeah. And I want to kind of dive into that too, because you talked last time about your mom would drive you 2 hours one way for a 60-minute practice and 2 hours home.
Yeah,
One,
that was middle school.
what did that do for your relationship with your mom?
I have a really good relationship with my mom. Like, she traveled everywhere with me, has supported me when I've made crazy decisions, like, wanting to quit a job to get more competitive in CrossFit. So ever since I was in middle school, like, it starts with her. It starts with her and my dad, so they've always been supportive. And, when you argue about, following MapQuest over and over again, um, you start to make a lot of laughs along the way as well. So my mom is pretty awesome.
Paige, when I was
Not to
doing the
brag,
long
not to brag.
distance, yeah, when I was doing the long distance driving with my parents, like they took me to private lessons that were an hour away, like lots of stuff. We didn't have MapQuest. It was the unfolded
The big
massive
one.
map. And my dad swore he was the best at reading it. And of course, we always got lost. And but it was those times that like brought me to get so close with my parents because we spent
Mhm.
so much time in this little tiny car together, and
Yeah.
all we could do is entertain each other.
Yep. And even, through college, like, I lived away in Ohio, my parents were in Pennsylvania, so I called my mom a lot more often than I called my dad. But, it's you always have the connection with them, and they came out every single, like, game weekend, they were there. So, yeah, my mom they were road warriors back when I was in college. They would drive, great lengths to see a game.
The other question I have about that is that creates a grind, right? Like as a hockey player, you have to want it so bad to be willing to drive all that way to practice. And do you think it made you the athlete you are today?
Yeah, definitely has, a huge impact in learning what commitment is, and discipline and being dedicated to it. You could use all the big cliche words, but they're there for a reason, and they teach you, value of, time and managing time and all that kind of stuff. And we loved it. Like, my mom, like, we look back on it, like, we wouldn't change a thing. We talk about that a lot, but we also look back and we're like, how the hell did we do all of that driving? Like, late night driving, early morning driving. Like, we look back then now and, like, it's exhausting just going for a 2-hour road trip in the middle of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So I went to college at Ohio State too, from Pennsylvania. So as on swimming scholarship. So then I only had a 4 hour drive back to my parents' house. And it seemed like an eternity.
yeah.
You had that plus another 4 hours
Yeah.
to get
Across the
across the
rest of the
state.
state. Yeah.
Yeah. So were you able to get home much, or was it more just phone calls and them coming to see you?
I definitely went home a lot of breaks. I spent summers in Ohio, but a couple of friends we would take a long weekend road trip to my house, or I would just go home to visit. It was always exciting to drive home. It was always hard to drive back to school. sometimes, and then vice versa other times. But I always loved getting, a small weekend in no matter what. But my mom and dad came out a lot, and they would come out even in the summertime when there were no games going on, and I was just taking some classes. So we made it work.
Yeah, my dad looked at it as a challenge every time he came to Columbus. He knew he could beat the 4-hour mark. He just had to
Every
do it just
time.
right, and he never could. It was always
Really?
4
All
hours.
right.
Always 4 hours.
I know, we're always like, "Okay, it's only 7 to 7.5." It always takes 7.5, even when you're on, like, the easiest stretch, and it just time just warps.
Yeah. So enough about all that stuff, but, well, one more thing. I gotta tell a funny story because when I you said when you got home, like, it was tough to go back. And one time I remember it was like a Labor Day or a Memorial Day, one of those weekends, and I tried to stretch it one extra day, but my parents couldn't bring me back, so I bought a Greyhound bus ticket.
Ooh,
Worst mistake of my
I've never
life.
done that.
I ended up in the Cleveland bus terminal at 2 in the morning, waiting 2 hours for the connecting bus to get to Columbus, and you
Oh
see
my
things in
gosh.
that bus terminal that no 18-year-old boy should be seeing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're taking a 4-hour trip on a Greyhound, they probably have to make a certain amount of stops and stop for a certain amount of time. Turns into what, a 12-hour trip or more?
Yeah, it was overnight. I got to Columbus at 7 in the morning. Like, it was stupid.
Oh, that's exhausting.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna bounce around a bit. I know Corey asked this question, so I'm gonna go ahead and get it's in my notes, so I'm gonna get to it now. All these rankings have come out recently.
Mhm.
Brian Friend released his female rankings this morning. Um, there was also the world rankings, and I want to kind of talk about that. So Brian Friend had you as the 31st woman in the world. The world rankings had you at 27, but you finished 21st at the games. So what does that all mean to you, and does it even matter?
I mean, I think Brian Friend does his research, right? Like, but at the end of the day, I'm the one here putting in the training, and everyone else is putting in their training and what they're doing, but I mean, you're not going to really know. I think it's a cool way to do predictions, but you're not really going to know who is doing what or how well anybody does until it happens. So I he's been pretty accurate with me, but yeah, you never know. Like, anything could happen. People can come out of the woodwork just like that. People can say they're not competing this year just like that. So it's just, you really aren't going to see the leaderboard until you see the leaderboard. But I mean, it's just cool in general. Like, I'm putting in a lot of work, and to see, to be in the top 50 in the world. I mean, you think of that when you put it in perspective, it's really amazing. So, I'm just gonna keep putting in the work, and I love to do it. So
So I was having a conversation with Carolyn Prevost offline, and I asked her what her thoughts were on the world rankings, and she said, "I can finally explain to somebody like how good I am that doesn't know the
yeah,
sport."
yeah.
Because you can say I
That's a good
finished
way to
this
put
at
it.
this event or this at this event, but being able to say, I think she was 20th in the world rankings, like
Mhm.
I'm top 20 in the world, then our friends that don't do CrossFit understand what that means.
Right. Yeah, when you look more into it and you just hear, a worldwide ranking, like, that's pretty cool to think that you're in this very small percentage of people. It's kinda similar to a Division 1 sport. Like, not many go Division 1 in a sport, and not many go professional outside of, when they're done with that sport. Like, it's a very small percentage of people. So it's definitely something to be proud of, regardless of who's saying where you're sitting or what.
Yeah, the way I view it is Brian Friend is looking at all the research and all the possibilities. The world ranking looks at people who have competed in the last 2 years not on a team. I think that's the biggest misstep of the world
Yeah.
rankings. CrossFit has essentially said teams don't matter, which I think is a fallacy in this number because there's some great athletes on teams.
Yeah, that's true.
But what I see is that Paige is an in-person big time performer.
Yeah, I would
Because
say I definitely do much better in a live competition than online.
because you and I think it comes from that team sports background. You're used to playing somebody and knowing that you have to beat that person or these people to do better. And you always seem to flourish when you get to the games.
Yeah, I feel like I've excelled year after year being at the games, from 2018 to 2019 to now, regardless of the cuts that happened in 2019. But I I bought in more and more each year, and I figured out what was working and what wasn't working. And I love competing. I love being out there, challenging ourselves, being next to somebody who's, a rep ahead, and it's like, all right, I got to push a little bit more. Can I beat them? Can I not? And there's so much, like, you see the external, the people alongside of you, but so much of it is internal as well. There's only so much I can physically do, and I need to kind of stay within my tunnel and within my lane, even when we're at those big competitions. But it's fun taking risks too and seeing if it's, if you're capable, if your ceiling's a little bit higher.
How much do you see what's going on around you?
Not a whole ton, but I do I do try to be aware of it because, especially when points really do matter, it's like, okay, well, I need to, really be conscious of what's going on around me, but also kind of focus on the movements that I'm doing and the pacing that I'm hitting, and kind of sticking to a plan and not letting what is going on around me get in the way of my plan. Because um, you know, sometimes perfect execution just comes from, kind of tunneling out everything else, and paying attention to just what you're doing. Which I would say in most cases is when I will perform best, is, keeping a tunnel vision when I'm at a competition. But there are times when you have to know what's going on, especially ones that are like, super fast or elimination style workouts.
What if it's a workout? And the reason I'm asking this is I listened to a podcast with Rich Froning earlier today, and his love for the gamesmanship of the event itself. And like he was using an example where the other person was better than him at one aspect of the workout, but he was better than the other person on the other aspect, and how he had to game that to know where to make his move and when to like knuckle down and go unbroken.
Hmm.
And that's what he loves about the sport of CrossFit. That in-game strategy, when you know that this person has you here, you have them here, how do you get ahead?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Everyone kind of has their movements too. And you kind of they start to, the more competitions you do and the more training you do, the more you kind of build your athlete IQ of, just learning about yourself. You start to figure those out. Like in competitions, I've I've started seeing that I'm a good person to rope climb, and when in training, I never felt that way. I never had the confidence to do it. But it's been programmed a lot more. We do it a lot more in training. I don't cherry pick those pieces, and because I know I need to get better at them. And when you actually put the time in, it's like, okay, yeah, you see it, you see it for what it is, and you're like, oh, all right, this is a good movement for me. Let's take advantage of that. So I like that too. I'm sure it was a good podcast to listen to with Rich.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated by the mindset of an athlete because, like, as being a Division One athlete for a brief time, like I gamed my events as well. I
Hmm.
swam the IM. I knew my breaststroke was going to lose me ground. How do I get ahead enough that I can sustain that? and then
Yeah.
finish off on the freestyle. Things like that. I love the thinking behind that.
Hmm.
But I want to kind of transition now into programming. You've talked about that. You've been a misfit athlete for a long time.
Yeah. 2018.
And in this day and age, it seems like the training camp thing, there's a lot of movement and a lot of things, a lot of like not loyalty that there used to be to kind of a program, yet you've stuck with Misfit the whole time. What is it about that crew that makes you want to stay?
I mean, first, why fix something that's not broken? Even, we've had athletes here where I live that are getting more and more competitive with it, and they followed Misfit for a while, like back in 2018 when I first started following Misfit, saw success from it, and then they just started bouncing programs, and I just it didn't even I didn't even think twice about it. Like I it just they I've seen success with Misfits programming. I've seen them evolve their programming and their mindset around training and lifestyle and how to make yourself, a well-rounded athlete and human, that it's like, they don't just care about the fitness and the training that you do. They care about who you are as a person. Um, and I just, I slowly developed a really good relationship with my coach Gabe, and it's working. So I just I just would never, try to change something that's not broken. I see progress, I see success, and I have fun and I enjoy working with them, with Drew, with Gabe, with all of them, Ted, Hunter, so it's awesome.
They don't seem to like market themselves, which kind of seems to be your MO as well, right? That with all this stuff going on, you have underdogs out there all the time, and you have HWPO and Mayhem and Training Think Tank and all this stuff, and you're just being bombarded with it all. And Misfits is just kind of under the radar, doing their thing. And when I first went to live semifinals, the support I saw from that crew, like sending you all shirts and
Yeah.
and being there with you, and it just it seemed like a really cool kind of outlaw group because they're under the radar. Nobody really knew what was going on with them, and maybe that's where Misfits comes from.
Yeah. I do love, like, I anytime I talk with Jen, who does a lot of the back end stuff, like it's athlete first, and that's one thing to love about Misfit. Um, but they don't just program for the elite individual. Like they have there's a web that they program for, and that they just do a really good job at making it so that you can be a games athlete and that you can be an everyday competitor, and they have everything in between. They have their affiliate programming, like, we have I'm a remote coach with them as well, so I have a few athletes that I work with, under Misfit Athletics, and we have remote coaching meetings, and these meetings are about, blocks of training that are well in advance. Like, they are just constantly thinking and trying to evolve as the sport evolves, and it's just so informative to see that kind of stuff and see how much passion and work they put into it. So, you know, it I started following them back in 2018, but it's also become, I'm just a really proud person to be part of a company like that and see the passion that they put into everything.
So now you're remote coaching with them. Is that what you see as your future when you're done with the athletic side?
I mean, I coach in person as well here at our gym at CrossFit Vertex. I love coaching. I definitely would like to get more involved with the remote coaching side of it. I have a very small, group. I only work with like 3 people right now. But yeah, I definitely would like to expand more into that, and kind of see what that route is really all about. It's just it's hard to want to add more in when I know I want to commit to another year of training for the games and trying to get back there. So, I kind of keep it. I want to, like, I value doing things outside of training. Like, it helps me balance training, and not get so, overly stimulated and mentally involved with, the stress of competition and, am I good enough? All that kind of stuff. Like it gives me an outlet. So, and I value doing that a lot and making sure I have some sort of balance when it comes to the gym for training and for coaching. I've talked about that quite a bit with Gabe about, I need to do something outside of training to make sure that I'm not, you know, either crushing myself or just getting too in my head about it. But I love coaching in person as well. So I coach a good chunk of hours right now. I can also easily see myself doing that more when the time comes.
You see yourself more as the community coach or maybe some elite athletes as well?
I would definitely love to work with elite athletes. I I won't say that they're easy to work with, but I love the discipline that's involved and in seeing an athlete that go out like, gets after what they want, um, and takes your advice, really to a T and really tries to listen and dial in a lot of the aspects that it takes to become an elite athlete. Uh, but we have a teens class at our gym. And I'm not saying super competitive teenagers, but I really enjoy working with young kids too, and just kind of, seeing kids who have never competed before in a sport in general, and they come in and they do CrossFit and they commit to it 4 days a week and they really enjoy it. So, um, even, if there's kids that become more competitive with it, awesome. But just to kind of be part of the mold that they are forming is kind of cool.
What did you study at Ohio State?
I went to school for education. So I'm doing that in some form, just not in a school.
Yeah, you give off the vibes, like the teacher vibes. Um,
Ugh. I guess I can see it.
yeah. And the only reason I say that is my co-host Amy, who was on with us last time, she's a teacher, and
Yep.
runs a
Mhm.
preschool, and you guys have very
God love
similar
her.
vibes.
Yeah, I mean, I knew, like, when I graduated, I was like, I had to go back for more school, and I was pretty burned out with school, with hockey, like, I loved it, don't get me wrong, I loved everything I did, I wouldn't change it. We went through a lot of coaching changes throughout my 4 years in school and just a lot of adjustments in general, which, started to get a little hard. Um, but so I got a little burned out with school with ice hockey, and then I, eventually graduated, but by the time I graduated, I was like, I don't know if I see myself sitting in a classroom for 6 hours a day. I just didn't see myself being somebody sitting on a chair over and over again. So, coaching was a really kind of great transition. Like I still love teaching. I love to teach and express passion through fitness, and kind of share that with people. So remotely, in person, like I like it both ways.
So Kat just chimed in that one of her athletes today said, "Kat, you should have been a teacher." And I was like, I kind of am."
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you're teaching. You are teaching fitness, and people learn things in the gym that they take and they apply it outside of the gym. So, I mean, there's a lot that people benefit from a CrossFit gym in general. The community, doing hard things. Like we're trying to, encourage people at our gym right now to keep signing up for the open and whatnot. And it's. I think that's one thing that we talk about is you find growth, but from doing hard things and coming out on the other side of it. So which also I'm excited for the open.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So, and it starts this week. Wow.
I know.
It has come
Too
up
fast.
quick.
Agreed.
So the one thing for me when I was a coach, I really had a hard time shutting it off to be an athlete again. And I never figured out that balance. So how do you do that? Do you set separate time aside for you, Paige the athlete, that is way different than you, Paige the coach?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I can definitely see them blurring, like if I'm in if I'm not even in a class, but I see a class going on and there's someone in the back of the room that's, kind of doing something a little incorrectly and the coach is way in the front of the room and they can't quite see them, like I will chime in and, just give them a little cue to make whatever they're doing easier or better. Um, so yeah, I do need to more often than not divide my time. So like I have like Tuesdays and Mondays and Tuesdays, I have gaps of time between the classes that I coach where nobody's at the gym. So those are, perfect times to get something in. We also have, excuse me, our garage is a two-story garage. So which is fully decked out, machines, a rig. Like we are pretty spoiled. But we kind of bought it over time and made it what we wanted to make it. So we always have this as our outlet to just go in the garage, which is kind of, incredible.
So before I get into your training a little bit, I have a couple questions. One is, what does your gym do for the open?
So we get as many people to sign up as we can. And then we typically run heats all day on Saturday. But obviously, you have people that can't make it on Saturdays. So we try to do a Friday evening. You could call it Friday Night Lights, but Saturday is our big day um, for the open. So Kalina, the owner, she'll gather everybody that signed up and she puts a lot of work into organizing heats and making sure that everybody's schedules can work with the time that she puts them in. And then we have whoever signs up and gets the judges course done will be there to judge the entire day or for part of the day, but we always make it a fun day. We keep the music going, and just run heats. So and usually a ton of people will come and just hang out, even if they're not doing the open, which always, having some friends to yell and cheer you on is, one of the better parts of it.
Yeah, so Amy's in the chat right now. She had an appointment tonight, but the gym she's at and I used to be at, they actually split the gym into 4 teams.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
then it's a competition, but not just your open score, but like every week's a theme week or a
Hmm.
charity week or whatever, and you get bonus points for like bringing food to donate or whatever
Oh,
for
that's
charity week
great.
or dressing up like a superhero or whatever that theme week is.
That's
Um,
fun.
and it upped participation from like 20 people to like 150.
Oh, wow. Whoo, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is massive. And so, like, I know for the 3 weeks of the open, I don't have Amy as a co-host,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. She's going to be a little busy.
Yeah, because she's
That's
coaching,
awesome.
judging, participating,
Yeah.
and all
It
that
is.
stuff. So,
It's a lot of work, but it's totally worth it when, it brings the community together for 3 weeks. I when it was 5, like, that's a long 5 weeks, but 3 weeks, I feel like, is a lot more manageable for an affiliate, especially when you have a membership like that. So, that's really awesome.
and I'm going to
We
pop
wanna
this
I
up
wanna do
because,
teams.
yeah. And Amy said, I think you said this, you can do hard things. That is
Yeah.
Amy's favorite quote of all time.
That's great.
So, about your training, I know you train most of the time alone.
Yeah.
Are you an athlete that thrives in that environment, or do you wish you had a training partner?
So luckily for me, we have a younger girl who is kind of just coming up in the sport. Her name is McKenna. So she has done quarterfinals, I believe, the last 2 years. Um, and just recently started following Misfit. So her and her boyfriend, Ben and I get along with them really well and we like to hang out with them. So, it kind of worked out, you know, almost perfectly that she started following Misfit and we can do a lot of training together when we're available. She's also in a clinical rotation right now for physical therapy. So she is quite busy, but weekends we try to get together and have some fun and get some training in. But for the most part, I I like training alone because I can just have my own routine and stick to it. And because I've done it for so long by myself, like I'm very much in my own routine. And if someone wants to train with me, like if Ben's like, I want to come and on my day off and work out with you, like, well, I'm doing my full warm up, my mobility, like there's a whole routine to go through, and I won't change that. And when you start training with people, you kind of have to readjust what you do and all that. So not that it not that I wouldn't, and I do quite, frequently, but not too much, especially if I go up to Misfit and I'm there for a weekend, training with Caroline in Austin or something like that. So, but I like what I do right now. I enjoy it, and it just works.
Do you think the Misfit camps give you enough of that like competitive fire? Like when you go up there and you're with Carolyn and you can like rip it up, right? Because you guys are both elite
Yeah,
athletes and can do it every day. That might get to be that's the argument for against training camps, right? That
yeah,
too much of that can burn you out.
yeah. I definitely like if I was in, kind of a kill zone of needing to compete all the time and needing that environment, that would crush me. Like I would burn out from that. I could use it maybe 1 or 2 times a week, but to do that every day, and I'm sure, owners that, people that run these training camps are aware of that, and they hopefully try to find balance with it. I remember hearing a podcast from, I think it was Brute Strength, that, certain athletes have certain training windows together and certain ones don't and whatnot. But I mean, that's also part of it too, is like, I don't want someone to dictate my schedule. Like I'm 31 years old. I don't, as much as I love having a coach, like I also have my independence, and I think that's why it works so well.
Being 31 and in the sport with all these young teenagers coming up,
Can't stand them.
just get rid of them all.
Yeah, just go away. Just kidding. Just
Yeah.
kidding.
So is there a sense of pride that you're still performing at an elite level, making it back to the games, essentially top 20, and all these young kids are coming up and trying to bump you out, but you're not going anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at it both ways, right? Like, it's cool that someone like myself or Christy Aramo or Emily Rolfe, like we're all in our 30s, our early 30s, and then you have the Haley Adams and Mal O'Briens who are, late teens, early 20s, and it's like I don't know. I do get a sense of pride from it, but I also get a sense of pride at seeing what these teenage girls are doing, and their approach to training, and all, just their athleticism and their fitness is amazing. And it's I think because I coach a teen class now, and I have so much pride in seeing them excel in sport and in school and whatever, that I have no, it's hard to not be proud to see that happen, and especially in a sport that you love. But yeah, I'm damn sure gonna keep trying to compete with them and hang on right now. But I don't feel like I'm hanging on. I feel like I am in a good spot, and I feel confident. So that's a big change too from when I was first competing in 2018 to where I'm at now, is the confidence.
So let me put your cat coach's hat back on, and you do not have to name a name. But when you look at these young teens coming up, is there any one of them that you look at and go, man, if I could just get a hold of that person and coach them, I know I could make a difference?
Yeah, 100%. Um, there's a few, and I kind of, get to, I McKenna follows Misfit and we train together. Like I'm not her coach in any way, but she kind of can see what I do and how I, go about certain training pieces, and how, their strategy, and, how it can be something as simple as rowing, but you can have, so many things to think about as far as pacing and all this stuff. And, just kind of giving her those little tidbits is kind of cool. And I'm really excited to see what she does, especially this year. Um, but even remote athletes too. Like I did work with a teen at one point who like had just recently aged out, but she had been to the games in the teenage division right before she aged out, which was really cool to work with her. And we have a couple teenagers through Misfit, Jenna Michelotti, Sophie Schaff just aged out. Caroline Wolfel was the one that I had recently or had worked with in the past. It's just cool. Like it's just to see like, and I'm sure, someone who's coaching them specifically like Sherb can, attest to seeing their progress and their growth in these short, little windows of time of 2 years or 1 year from their games results. And they put in the work and they're just, man, they're so impressive.
It's funny because talking about it, you can see the excitement you have for the future of the sport. And
Yeah.
not only like for yourself, but the sport overall and where it's going and how almost like how you can play your part.
Yeah. And I mean, we just recently ran a team competition here. And again, not an elite level competition. This was kids that are just, everyday athletes at their own gym. And we had this little peanut kid. He's 9 years old. Um, he had been doing CrossFit for I don't even know how many years, but our gym allowed him into the 10 to 12 age group division. And he was one of the only kids to climb the rope in his division. And like everybody's in awe by this little kid because he's literally like this little peanut. So it's just so cool to watch them and kind of learn what it's like to get gritty and to, really have to kind of suffer a little bit. It's kind of fun to watch.
All right. So now I want to get to the part that I've been most excited to talk to you about. And this is the juicy part of the podcast. So
Hit
you're
me.
coming off the you're coming off the floor at Wodapalooza, and a reporter asks you how you came out of nowhere to win an event. And you had a little bit of a salty response.
I did. So I felt bad because what he was talking about was the specific event in general. And I was just like, nope, I'm going to say it. I'm going to get it off my chest because it's been here for so long. Um, and yeah, I let it out. And I actually messaged him later. I'm like, listen, I'm so sorry if that was rude. I didn't mean to come off like that. It just came out. And I just had so much adrenaline from that actual workout and how well it went. So yeah, that was funny.
So
See,
your
everyone's saying it's
comment
not
was
rude.
right. So your comment was that you haven't come out of nowhere. You just don't follow me on Instagram or social media or something to that degree.
Yeah.
So you said on our last podcast that you don't want your phone to be a part of your day, like that is a distraction, not something that you should have to do throughout the day to be a successful athlete. Am I capturing that correctly?
Yeah, it's pretty much it. I'm just yeah, like my life is my life and I love where I'm at and I love who it's with and I just, have never been someone who feels over time with social media, I've gotten to a point where I don't feel it is important for me to show my life to everybody else when it really is for the people that are in my life, if that makes sense. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just kind of, over time, I've grown to be that way. Like when I was younger, like back in 2018, I'll be completely honest, like 2018, 2019, like I wanted the social media following. I wanted all of that because I saw the years before, like 2017, 2016, these athletes, they qualify and their social media explodes. And that never happened for me. And so I used to get really bummed about it. I used to, almost tempted to want to buy Instagram followers and all that stuff, but I just could never get myself to do it. And over time, again, like you mature, you grow out of it, and it's just like that's not what's important to me. It's not where I put my value with my training or anything like that. Um, and I probably just need help. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I try. But what people see on Instagram is mostly like really just me. Like that there's nothing more to it. I know I'm not some super flashy person, and I just try to keep it pretty real and pretty genuine, and every once in a while, make a little sassy comment.
Which is why I love following you.
Thanks.
Um, and I get it, right? Like we're in this business too, right? Where we're trying to gain a following so that we can get more listeners, more
Hmm.
subscribers. I mean, that's all we're like, that's how our monetization happens.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's so frustrating when you see, I think I commented back on your so Danny Spiegel commented back on your comment, and then I commented on that because she said something about, don't you hate it when the reporters don't do their homework? And that triggered
Yeah, I
me
saw that. I
because
did see
I
that.
was like, damn it, like I do all the research. I know everything. And I don't even get the opportunity to get that close to ask you that question.
Right. Right. I know.
Right.
It's a hustle too. Like you have to hustle to create content and to do all that stuff. And my hustle is doing the work in the gym. Like I don't put more into my social media, and maybe that's a fault of mine, but I do what I do, and for some sponsorships you have to do a lot more and all this, and I don't necessarily have that right now. I have a lot with most of my requirements come through like doing things with Misfit, Sharpen the Axe, Proper Fuel, and those are really the only three. And funny enough is it's Misfit Athletics, Sharpen the Axe, and Proper Fuel. They're all you know owned by the same people. So
Yeah.
which is also kind of cool, and again, kind of another reason that I enjoy being with Misfit.
So if you were to come in the sport now as 17, 18-year-old,
As I say, you're making me young, right? Okay.
yeah, as a 17 or 18-year-old, and the way the sport is starting to trend with a growth, right? Do you think you have to have a social media presence to be able to make it your career?
No. I mean, I'm definitely not well versed with social media enough to know, but I feel like my first answer would be no. Um, I mean, I still think you see kids coming up and kind of showing themselves. Like Annika Greer, in 2020 was supposed to go to the games, right? COVID happened, and then Wodapalooza, I think the following year, like her Instagram, social media just kind of flourished from that. From I think it was like one event, um, but I don't know prior to that, but I don't think that she had a whole ton of following. And then I look at someone like, we have two Sabatinis at our gym who both went to the games. One, both podiumed. Gigi was in the older age group when she podiumed, and not a huge social media following, but still competed at the highest level at her age at the time. Um, I don't think you need it. What do you think?
I think as it grows, you almost have to look at yourself like a business.
Yeah,
Like what
that's true.
investments are you going to make into your business to sustain yourself? Now, you love coaching and so you that gives you the opportunity to not have to do X, Y, and Z, right? Because you can support
Yeah,
yourself.
that's true.
Um, but if you look at an athlete coming up who doesn't want to coach, they just want to focus on their career, there's really only one way to make money, and that is
Yeah,
through sponsorships. And to do that, you have to treat yourself like a business. What I think the bad part of that is we don't get anybody's authentic self at that point,
yes, agreed.
right? Like with
Definitely
you, I get
agree.
authentic Paige because you don't care and you're not looking for the sponsorships, which
Yes.
is refreshing. But these young kids coming up, they're being told what to say, how to say it, and how to get the following so that they can sustain themselves over the next 10 years.
Yeah, and, kind of what I think a negative impact, a negative side of that is you have these younger girls doing that, and I'm not saying they're doing I don't want this to come off wrong, but you have girls that aren't or are trying to compete in the sport or in the sport of CrossFit, and they wanna do it like, young girls and boys, like, they are like sponges, right? Like, if they see all this stuff, they want to absorb it, they wanna do it, and for some, that could have a bad like, a negative consequence to it instead of a good one, it could have, you know, any, mental health issues and things like that, and it's at such a young age, and it's just I don't know, that's one of the impacts of social media that I don't love, especially when it comes to a younger, age group, but
And even prior to social media, I mean, I've been a sports fan for a long time. Michael Jordan said all the right things. It wasn't until well after his career was over and The Last Dance that we got real Michael Jordan, right? Tiger Woods never said anything out of line until his life unraveled. And did his life unravel because of trying to maintain this image? Like all these things have happened in other sports with other athletes, and I think it's just beginning here. But
yeah,
I do think that if you want to succeed, you have to look at yourself like a business, and you have to
yeah,
make strategic decisions from day one as to how you want to run your business.
yeah, which, I mean, at the age of 17, 18, hopefully you have somebody, whether it's your parent or, if an agent, I feel like that side of the sport is growing a lot as well, there to help you make those right decisions.
Yeah, and hopefully you get the right agent,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's
Because
something I don't know, like, that's something I'm really, like, don't really know much about is, like, agency within the sport of CrossFit, but I do know quite a few athletes that do have them. I just don't know a whole ton of details on it.
yeah, I just your comment sprung a lot into my head about the status of where we are with this whole and I think it's more prevalent on the female side than the men's side right now.
Yeah, I could see that. And like, there are certain companies who I have reached out to in the past that say, like, you need a certain amount of following on your social media if you want to be considered. And that was kind of not that it's defeating, but it's like, well, okay, I don't know how to get more followers. I can post half naked pictures. I can post, I don't know, I can do vlogs, I can do that kind of stuff, but I don't have the resources to do that. So,
But if you started doing that, then you wouldn't be authentic. And my argument to you, as someone with a business degree, is that an authentic page at your following is more important than someone with over 1 million followers who's not being authentic,
yeah, that's true.
because
That's
your
true.
followers are
Thanks.
true to you.
Thanks.
And I think that's a strategic decision on your part. Like, you're running your business in a certain way that matches you.
Yeah, I I can agree with that. I never
I
really
just
looked at it
don't
like
know.
that, like as a business, but I definitely agree with that.
I just don't know if today's 16, 17-year olds are going to have the same option you had.
True. I guess, yeah, and really you only find out by watching it continue to evolve.
Yeah. So the 23 season's coming up. We'll move on to just a little bit of CrossFit, and then we'll let you go. So it's coming up. We have a whole new season. There's only 2 semifinals in North America. You're going to be in the East,
Mhm.
which by all accounts is the most stacked region in the world. Do you even think about that going into the season, or you're just like, I can't control it, I just got to be the best Paige I can be?
Yeah, I get asked a lot about how I handle all of the changes with the seasons, like, year after year, and it's just kind of just take it one step at a time, one stage at a time. The Open, quarterfinals, semifinals, like you kind of worry about it when the time comes, and when peaking schedule comes up for it. Um, I haven't thought too much about it because if I do, it'll probably stress me out, and um, I don't really need, like, there's no reason to stress. There's no reason right now to be stressing about something that, like you said, I can't control. Um, and like they're gonna make the changes that they're gonna make, and you kind of have to roll with the punches, season after season.
Yeah, I think for every con there's a pro, right? Yeah, you're in the most stacked division, but you have 60 people now. There's a cutoff from like elite to that next level. I think the extra people are going to help someone who's as consistent as you are. If you look at the points, right? Because you're not going
Yeah,
to have like a big fall off. But there are some of the top athletes, if they fall to 58 or 54, that's going to be huge.
yeah, yeah. That's a hole to climb out of. Um, but I'm not too worried about it. Like when the time comes, I will be a lot more concerned and ready. But until then, I'm just going to continue with training, through the Open, getting ready for quarterfinals, and then really getting ready to ramp it up for semifinals.
So
There's
this
a
is Kat
question.
asking, how do you feel about consistent programming across all the semis?
I like it. I think I like last year that they had two for sure that were for every semifinal. I like having comparison. It's kind of cool to see. I feel like it's gonna make it, like, you're gonna really kinda see the strength of field and the athletes that are chosen for the games that qualify this year. I feel like that helps by having the consistent programming. So, I didn't hate it last year though either, but you can really, programming does matter at semifinals. If you look at an athlete like Christy Aramo who, struggled and had to fight out of a hole to get it, to qualify last year, and then she goes on to excel really well at the games. So, it does matter, but I mean, I like the consistency.
Yeah, I think it's risky for CrossFit because it's going to point out if their regions aren't equal, right?
Yeah,
If 20 people from the East would have qualified had they been in other regions, and it's going to be obvious to see that because you've all done the same workouts.
yeah. So would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Like, because
I think it would mean more change.
fun. Yeah, it would have to, unless they didn't care. But obviously, they're making so many changes now because they do care and they want it to be something that makes sense.
Yeah, it this could be a whole nother show, but I think they're talking out of two sides of their mouth. They want representation from all over the world and they want it to be fair. You can't
Yeah,
do both,
yeah. You get a little bit
right?
from one area of the world, and you get a lot from North America.
And if you want to let somebody from Africa in, they're probably going to be the 80th best person or the 90th best person in the world. So you're leaving one of the top 40 out.
I will say it's better than the national champions in
That is,
2019.
I'll agree
I
with you
will say
there.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I used to be a statistician. They have too many predetermined numbers in their formulas for it to make any significant change.
Okay. Yeah, see, I
Right.
didn't do my research. I wasn't prepared for
And,
this.
but the East is going to get some extra people. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So in
Regardless of what happens in the next two rounds.
Yeah, um, which is cool. Like, yeah, it's the most, people had said it about my semifinal last year that it was one of the toughest semifinals, rosters to be in. So, um, I think that's a good indication of how if people are saying that, that was a good indication of how my you know my games went. Like 21st, that was my best finish. I had a great semifinal weekend. So I think that all kind of played into one another.
Yeah, you had the 11th person at the games not make it out of your semifinal
Right.
and finish 7th, not even
Right.
6th.
Yeah. Like that's wild. They're good
Yeah, like
athletes, and I mean they figured it out.
they did, but they had to go ham on the last chance
And
qualifier.
I know. I don't feel I feel, there was sympathy because I did the last chance qualifier in 2021. Yeah. And it's tough. It's so stressful. It's so stressful. But there's no more of that
So
either.
you had your best finish ever last year. Do you think there's any reason why you won't improve on that this year?
Um, I mean, unless, you can't control how good other athletes are getting, can't control the programming, but just I was exposed to a lot this year at the games, and I saw a lot of areas for improvement. And one thing with our training this year with Misfit is, it's not just there are some things that we're doing all year round as far as training for the games and not just waiting until, semifinals programming, like or peaking schedule or anything like that. Like there are some things that have been going on all year round that, will really transfer over into the games and being a little bit more prepared for games training when the time comes. So I like that this year. But I mean, I'm just gonna continue to, focus. Like right now, I've really with Wodapalooza. I didn't peak for Wodapalooza. It wasn't, my goal wasn't to go there and I mean, it was to go there and do my best and want to win, but I knew that my expectation was not there. My expectation was use this as a stepping stone for the season for 2023, and that's exactly what it was for me. I saw a couple areas that I've been doing a lot of work on, and seeing improvement, and still some areas that are going to need some focus, and I'm just going to continue to chip away.
Well, we want to wish you good luck on the season. We're up on the hour, so I want to let you go. But just remember, I do my homework. I recognized you in the Miami airport, and you didn't
I
even have
know. Oh my
workout
god.
clothes on.
No, it was so early. That was like 4 a.m. Yeah.
It was stupid early. And I
Yeah.
still
Too
almost missed
early.
my flight because of the TSA line.
I know. Shouldn't have been that long, but that's Miami. Well,
Yeah.
Scott, thank you
Well,
for
thank you.
having me on.
Oh, anytime. We'll get Ben on next time with you.
Yeah. He's actually cooking dinner right now, and I'm very excited to go eat.
All right.